Hi. Welcome to Reddit Stories. Be sure to comment who you think is the a-hole in each story. Story 1, AITA for telling my sister she is a hypocrite to judge us for not adopting when she only adopted as a last resort. I, 27M, am married to my amazing wife ever, 27F. We are unable to have children together naturally. Our fertility doctor has said our best chance at having biological children is IVF, and we are now working our butts off to make that happen for us. My family is aware of our struggles to conceive, and they know we have decided to pursue IVF. My sister Jane, 43F, has been vocally outspoken about her disgust at our decision. She told us that ever being adopted, she should be thinking of adoption before any form of fertility treatment. She has ranted about how IVF is unethical and how we are going to fudge our kids up for life. She has focused most of her ire on Ever, and I have stepped in each and every time and told her to knock it off, and to keep her opinions to herself. She questions Ever every step of the way about rejecting adoption and how her family must feel to know she would rather have her own bio baby instead of adopting when they adopted her. Ever opened up to Jane, which is something I did not think she needed to, and I told Ever as much, but she wanted to. She told Jane that adoption is not always an ethical option, and while it can be such an amazing thing and brings so much joy to everyone, adoption is nowhere close to perfect. She also opened up about feeling on the outside her whole life because she looked like nobody in her family would always pass comments about her siblings, bio kids of her parents, looked like family members, and comments were often made about twins meaning lookalikes. How is the only kid who never got that and the kid who was different, it weighs on you. She said her parents and siblings loved her as their own and she loved them. But she also knew the extended family saw her as the adopted child, as the child that wasn't really theirs. She mentioned how both her birth parents rejected her when she reached out for contact. And how it all made her long for a genetic connection to the family she creates. She told Jane she can have that, it will just cost, but she could not in good conscience adopt when it would be her last choice. Jane called her names and told her she was disgusting and should be ashamed for viewing things this way. Ever was so upset after talking to Jane. Then Jane called me a few days later and told me I should talk to Ever about how she needs to fix her thinking. I hated hearing my sister say that about my wife, and I told Jane that she was the biggest hypocrite going because she only adopted her kids as a last resort after being told again and again that IUI and IVF would not work for her and that surrogacy wouldn't either. I told her we never judged her for how she started her family, but I did judge her for having gone through all that and being so hard on Ever. I told her it was disgusting, and she should be doing better. Jane told me I had no business throwing her infertility in her face, and she told me to go fudge myself. Ida. Story 2, AITA for proving that my wife can Euro T do my job. FYI, I didn't Euro T proofread this. This issue started when my wife left for a week for a girls' trip. The kids are all in school, and I took over as the main caregiver when she was gone. It went well, and when she came back, she asked if I had trouble. I told her no, and everything went smoothly. This started an argument about how I thought it was so easy that she was a som. It wasn't Euro T a good time, and I was already pushing her to go back to work part-time since the kids were in school. We have talked about her starting to look around this summer. The issue now is, I work from home twice a week, and every time she sees my screen or I complain about work, she tells me she can do it. I have talked to her about it, and nothing changes. That if she did it, it would go smoothly. I thought back on our argument and have asked her about it, she denies it has anything to do with it. So she won Euro T stop, and I had enough of it today. I was trying to figure out why there was an error in my code. She saw what I was doing and told me she could do that. I told her to go ahead, made a copy that she could work on. Well, she tried for about 5 minutes until she gave up. I reiterated that if she can do my job, find the error. This started a huge argument about making her look like an idiot, and now she isn't Euro T talking to me. Story 3, AITA for telling my brother he shouldn't have lied to his daughter if he didn't want to face the consequences. My brother Andy, 40M, has a 9-year-old daughter Ella. Andy always had custody of Ella. Her mom was an addict who passed several years ago. When Ella was 2, Andy met his wife Trish. Trish was a single mom of 2 who are now 18 and 17 years old. They got married, and Trish and Andy made a very big deal out of Trish kids being big siblings to Ella and how much she would adore them and how they needed to embrace and love her and make her feel wanted. But Trish kids were not on board with this and were vocal about it. They resented Ella over time because she was often dropped into their laps to pose for photos and for bonding time. Oftentimes it was everyone sitting down to watch TV, but Trish would pick Ella up and sit her between her kids or on one of their laps. Then Ella would cling to Trish kids. The older Ella got, the more she thought Trish kids hung the moon and stars in her eyes. She adored them. Wanted to hang out with them. Was proudly calling them her siblings. And Andy and Trish would tell Ella how much Trish kids loved Ella. They told her they were so happy at the wedding to become her big siblings. They told her they made a promise in front of everyone to be there for her always and declared how much they loved her. They even showed her some fake stuff the kids were supposed to have said. I was at the wedding. I was there almost every second as my brother's best man. They never said stuff like that. They did say they wanted Ella nowhere near them and to get the kid away. The lies filled Ella with so much false belief that Trish kids thought as much of her as she did them. Several months ago things came crumbling down when Trish daughter, 17, was left to babysit Ella for several hours, and she made it clear she did not love Ella and never saw her as a sister, and neither did her brother. She told Ella that Andy and Trish lied and asked why they would want her, she was never their actual sister, they share no parents, etc. It crushed Ella, and Andy was upset. Trish's son apparently laughed when Trish called him up to find out how he felt about what his sister did. He said it was about time Ella realized they didn't care about her. Andy told me everything. He has vented to me multiple times over the last few months. He has said this was never meant to happen, and nobody would have figured this would happen, except me, of course, since I warned him repeatedly when I first heard about the lies. He blames Trish Kids for breaking Ella's heart. He said Ella will never be the same, and she's not even opening up in therapy, and he wishes he could make Trish Kids pay. A few days ago he was particularly upset, and I told him this was his fault. I pointedly told him he never should have lied, and now he was living with the inevitable consequences of his lies. Andy didn't like that and told me I was a jerk for blaming him and for expecting him to tell Ella that Trish Kids hated her. He said I was as bad as them. Ida?